Great. Great talks. Thanks. No pressure. Very animating, though. So I'm Martin. I'm a UX designer at Ginetta, and I would like to talk about two of my favorite things. Not cakes this time, but music and design and how they can learn from each other. That's me. Very professional UX designer on the left, with an education in interaction design and system engineering. Not so professional and pixelated Martin on the right, starting to play drums when I was 6. Not all of the family members did like it. Still, I continued. I'm still doing music now, so I'm doing music for my whole life now. You can see myself where the cursor is. Actually, I should remove it. It's a bit dark, but you have to believe me, I'm there. Playing the keys. So I played different instruments, and I also produced music for myself. So I always had a bit more a hands-on approach towards music, while I had a more educational background in design. While I'm doing both disciplines for a while now, I started to notice similarities. For example, if you look at the creative process of both, it looks the same. It starts with an abstract idea or concept and works towards a concrete realization. But how you approach the different steps in between, it's different. And that's what I would like to explore today. How you can actually transfer one of those methods from design to music and vice versa. Actually, to change perspective and to think outside the box. So I just prepared 3 examples of how this could be done. First one is a jam session, then the product vision, and the arrangement. So the jam session. How many of you attended the jam session? Quite a few. As a musician? 1? Yeah. 2? Great. So what is actually a jam session? Sorry. It's when a group of musicians come together to play music, to improvise, to explore new ideas, and mostly for their own enjoyment. So there are a few ingredients in a jam session that I would like to talk about now and explain how this could be transferred from music to design. First of all, theory. Music theory is the foundation of a jam session, or of music in general, obviously. If there is no foundation, it's called free jazz. No, that's just a joke. Actually, if there is no foundation, no common language, how can you make music together? You need to know what timing is, you need to know what scales are to be able to make music together. You don't need to be an expert, but you need to know about it. It's the same in design. The common ground is the design theory. If you are making a design together, a co-design session, you need to know about design theory to be able to talk about it and to be able to argue about it. Different instruments, different roles. It's important to have different roles in a jam session, to have different instruments, because every instrument has its purpose, has its role in a jam session. They were built to have a role. For example, the drummer gives the time, and the trumpet player plays the lead. So it's important to have these roles in a jam session. And it's also the same in a design session, you could say. That it's important to have different roles in a design session. That's a difficult word. To actually be able to pick up on other ideas and to complete each other, to make the whole music together. What I just said, listen to others, is very important in jam sessions especially, also in music in general, but since it's improvised, you don't know what's coming next. You need to be able to listen what the others do, to be able to react on what they do and pick up the ideas, develop them further. Obviously, this is also important in design. If you are designing together, you always need to listen what others' ideas bring into a session, to pick them up and develop them further. So it's not just about the individual, it's about the whole group. Because at the end, it's about the overall output. In a jam session, that's the music at the end. And you could also say in design, it's the product or the process that you are designing. So it's not about the individual, the designer, the musician, it's about the overall output. Most importantly, having fun. I think it's a really important point, and it's one of the main points in a jam session. It's about having fun. Sometimes musicians, after a concert, they do a jam session afterwards. For example, Prince was known for that the musician actually could have fun afterwards. And it's also important in design to have fun, because if you are in a positive mindset, your brain is in a positive mindset, it also performs better. And the ultimate goal in a jam session, also in a design session, is to get in the flow state. That's when your brain performs the best. That's, by the way, also why jam sessions are called free flow sessions. Mouse. Last point, improvise. It's also a key feature of a jam session, it's improvised. Even if there is a certain structure that you can bring into a jam session, you don't know exactly where it develops, and you need to be able to accept that. And I think that's an important point in design, or in general, you could say. Just to know, to accept the fact you don't know what's coming out, you accept that, you go into the session, and you develop great ideas. So to sum up, I think it's a nice way of thinking about it, about the jam session. The next time you go into a meeting or a brainstorming session or a co-design session, to think about these ingredients of a jam session and transform it to design, to change perspective. Next, the product vision. I think it's one of the most important, but also most challenging parts of the design process, to create a shared vision within the project team. And it's not enough to just have a vision for yourself. It's important that everyone in the team shares the same vision. That's why I worked with the product vision board by Roman Pichler and extended it with a few principles we use at Ginetta. And the goal of this board, of this canvas, is to conclude all the important points that it is needed for a shared vision. So I'm gonna give you some examples how this could be transferred to music. First, the vision itself. It's just the vision put in words. For example, the vision of Airbnb is Airbnb's mission is to help create a world where you can belong anywhere and where people can live in a place instead of just traveling to it. So it tries to conclude everything in a few sentences, the whole vision. This we can use in music as well. If you are creating a song in a band, everyone needs to share the same vision about this song. So we can also conclude that in a sentence. What is the song about? And what state do you want to achieve? Second, the North Star. Again, an example of Airbnb. The North Star, the leading star that you are following through the project, belong anywhere. An example in music is, for example, to let people feel good. That's the North Star that you are following when producing a song, to let people feel good. In design, we use design principles. They are the foundation of the decisions we make during the process. For example, it could be inspiring, guiding, and collaborative. That's what we base our decisions on. Do we go this way or that way? It has to be inspiring, so we go this way. In music, they could also be used, but maybe slightly different. It's more about what do you want to express, or how should it sound? How should the song sound? It should sound calm, wooden, relaxing. If you have to choose between sounds, for example. You've already heard that we are working user-centered. This also means we have to know our target group. That's why we work with personas. To actually empathize with the users and know whom we're going to build the product for, what their needs are, what their pains are. In music, at least in my case, I don't make music for an audience, I would say. I mostly make music for myself. But still, I mean, the goal is that people listen to it. So I think it's a nice change of perspective to think about the audience when you're making music, create your song, to think where they actually listen to it, in which context, and how they should feel when they listen to it. Then we have the product. This includes what parts of the product is in scope. So in music, for example, this could be which instruments do we want to include and which parts of the process do we want to include in terms of producing, for example. Then the last one is really important in design. It's also important to take the user needs and align them with business goals, measurable business goals. In music, in my case, it's less about business goals, but still important to set goals to be able to reach them. For example, streams, visits, or just to produce a video clip so that you actually can work towards those goals and reach them. This is a photo of my rehearsing space, or our rehearsing space, where I already tried out some of the techniques from this product vision board. And to be honest, in the beginning, it felt a bit weird to actually take, work from, to take work into my music room. But it definitely helped us to structure our process a bit better and also to create a shared vision and actually to talk about it. So I think the product vision board can also help musicians to better structure their process and to create a shared vision within their bands. The last example is the arrangement. Who knows what an arrangement is? Not so many. That's good, because I'm going to explain it. This is an arrangement, or actually this is a song of mine. And you can see there is a timeline going from left to right, and there are vertical lines which split the song into parts. And this is the arrangement. So an arrangement consists of different parts that are being put together on a timeline, you could say. This is a fairly simple arrangement. It can also get a little bit more complicated. This is an arrangement of one of my favorite artists called Jacob Collier, and he goes nuts. But back to simplicity. This is also an arrangement. It consists of 3 parts, A, B, and C. And they are put in a certain order. In this case, A, B, and C, B, also known as verse, chorus, and bridge. But we also need to think about the transitions. We've already heard a lot about transitions now, how important they are. How do you actually transition from one part to another? And at the end, the overall experience of the whole song, not just the individual parts. So, known patterns. The pattern that you have just seen follows a certain order that we all know, because we all had music in school, so it's something that we already know. It's not something that we have to think about when we listen to a song, even if we didn't learn it. So we already feel comfortable when listening to a song, and this can be directly transferred to design. We can also stick to known pattern to actually reduce the cognitive load and not to let users think. So they already feel comfortable when using our product. Transitions. As I said, we've already learned how important they are. You can look at them on a micro level, like on a button. How do you change from one state to another? Or at the macro level in design, like how do you actually transition between 2 flows, 2 user flows? But it's always important to think about the transitions in between 2 states. Pleasant surprises. Nico showed us some examples. Even though sticking to known patterns, it's also important to add a little pleasant surprises from time to time. For example, the C part in a song structure is a pleasant surprise. This applies also to design. And at the end, it's about the overall experience, the whole song, the whole music, and not just the individual part. So I think it's a nice way of remembering the arrangement of a song the next time we are designing a product, to think outside the box and to change perspective. So I hope I could give you a few examples of how design and music can learn from each other. But it's not only about design and music, it's also about design and philosophy, or design and medicine, philosophy and business, or basically how your discipline can learn from every other discipline. So I would really like to encourage you to find your passion and combine it with your discipline, to put yourself into a different mindset and to explore the full potential of your discipline. Thank you.